Hey, hey,
How are you
there,
doing?
there she is. It's so great to see you.
It's so great to see you too and finally meet you over the phone.
I know, finally, I feel like we've had at least, 30 conversations at this point, but I do appreciate you taking some time. So we can just jump right into it. Long story short, we have been aiming to kind of like backfill some of the success stories and case studies and testimonials and things like that. And although we've asked you plenty of times and bought you plenty of lunches to talk to students, I'd love to just get something for us. That way we can potentially just use that instead of requesting you to jump on the phone with some people. And so thank you so much for being willing to hop on. As long as that's okay with you, I'll just run through like 5 or 6 questions and just kind of ask you. And then I'd love to understand a little bit about what you've heard from people that were considering joining, that ended up joining, and what are some of those questions that are top of mind. And then before we get into that, though, how's everything going with your new role?
Doing great. I love Disney. I love the AI space.
You've already done so much for us. And so Alex is happy to give you some on the job support. If you ever want to book in with him, like consider it on us, seriously. And one thing we have been doing is actually once people land an offer, we've been giving them on the job support because that's probably the next product ladder. That's the next product in our product ladder that we're going to create is like, hey, you got the role. Now what? And so, seriously, if you need anything from us on that front, I'd love to have you jump on with Alex himself and, you know, just to get his perspective because I'm sure he has some thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I met with Alex a couple months ago, right before I moved, and then the moving company actually like kind of stole our stuff for 30 days, so we were sleeping on an air mattress, so it was kind of crazy. But I did reach out back to Alex and say like, hey, do you want to meet and like catch up again? Because I promised I'd give him some things, but I didn't. Is how would be best to reach out to him? Is it email, like reach out in
Just
Slack, or what's
yeah, I can just put you guys in a text thread or something. So I can
okay? Oh yeah,
um
I have his number. I can just text him too.
yeah,
Um,
I'll throw you guys in a thread, but we can
okay.
help with that. So well great. Well yeah, if you want to kick things off, we can just dive right in. I guess you've talked to at least what would you say, probably a dozen, if not 20 people that have been thinking about joining the program. So the big picture is like I'd love to understand your experience. Was it awesome? Do you feel like you got a huge ROI? And what were some of the things that were awesome? And then from a perspective of someone that might be on the fence about joining, or you know, they saw something online and they weren't sure, or they haven't been exposed to us for that much, or they're just like, yeah, 12 grand's a lot of money, or whatever it is in the future when they see this, 13, 14, 15 grand or whatever. I'd love to just understand like your experience and highlights and lowlights or anything that you'd love to share.
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the biggest benefits of the program that was unexpected for me was around the just the network of people. I have not found that big of a product like professional network anywhere else in the world or online or anywhere. Just from like the diversity of the experience from the different companies and from the different specialties. I think going on the Slack channel, like you can find people in finance and AI in maybe specifically like chatbots or specifically I'm trying to think like maybe data or something. But you can find there's people who have experience or knowledge in anything that you're looking for. And they've also been there, like they've been at the companies or they've been in that role. And so they know not only, what to expect at the interview process, but also what to expect as far as like if you're applying for Amazon in a specific division, you can reach out to somebody who probably works in that division or has worked in that division and learn more about what that's like. So to get some insider information. I think also with like the Meta and Google rounds and like the rubrics that they have, just having like an understanding of, okay, this is kind of what they're looking for and you want to prepare for that is so valuable. And it's not something that is I mean, you can find stuff online, but like to get it that specialized per company or per specialty is extremely rare.
Sure. And you feel like having that leading up to those bigger, like top tech Mang Feng interviews was invaluable for you.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I would say with that network or some of like the mock interview people specifically, is like I had a lot of experience. I was a data product manager at Best Buy, or senior data product manager at Best Buy, and I didn't know how to market myself. So when I was introducing myself in the mock interviews or to different people, I would say like different things. Like I would say, oh, I worked with this technology, or I did, this many events per month, like 5 billion events per month were in our pipeline that I managed the entire pipeline for, or, etc. But then when I said two results specifically, which was I've had experience working with 220 million customers' data, and the experience that I helped support was number one in the App Store during the holiday period. Those two things were like huge. And just that first one, that 220 million number, is the only reason why I got an interview at Netflix, is because I had put that in like the subject line to reach out to in a message. And without me even realizing that number would have been super important, I would not have gotten that interview, and I would have not have gotten a lot of other interviews as well.
And who was it that helped you with that? Was it one of our coaches on the master classes, or was it Alex?
I think it was just I don't remember when I like actually learned it. It might have been one of the mock interview coaches, but or maybe it was Valerie when I was like talking with her.
Sure.
But it was just over time, like talking about your experience or the questions they would ask. It might have even been somebody had asked me how many customers' data do you have experience with, and then I had to go look it up while I was still working, and then would come back. I can't remember because like 220
Sure.
million, I didn't even know was valuable, but just hearing somebody else like point that out to me, or over time just realizing that these are the types of numbers to call out, that was so valuable.
Awesome. And I was actually just talking to another member that enrolled yesterday, and he said that like he went to one of the behavioral master classes on Monday, and basically they helped him reframe one story, and he had just never thought about it that way before, and that alone
Yeah.
for him unlocked, immediately like three opportunities where he got to advance to the next round. And so it's kind of like I think that if you're looking for it and you're proactive, just a few of these golden nuggets can make this a no-brainer, you know. So I appreciate you sharing that. I guess overall, like we help people get interviews, we help them ace the interviews, and of course we help them maximize their offer. You touched a little bit on like getting your interview with Netflix and how we help you do that. What about like interview readiness and interview support as far as different companies? You've been through a couple different loops while you were here. What was that process like, and what did you enjoy about it?
I think like my husband is a financial consultant, so he has a lot of experience like interviews or being professional or kind of answering questions, and he would help me run through like behavioral interviews. But to get like the product specific interview help and understand like the terms, the frameworks, the logic that product specific people are looking for, is impossible to find. I mean, even online, you can find like, articles or people write about, certain things to look for, but those things can be years old or months old. And with PCA, you can get it like I was connecting with somebody who I interviewed at Meta, and then she had interviewed at Meta like 2 days before, and we had talked about our experience, and we had both dealt with like a very similar concern. And so we were able to like help strategize with each other about how to handle it. And that's something that I think Meta, they had just gone through, like they had 4,000 people had just been laid off. So it was like kind of a difficult week or something. But those are the kind of things that like then other people were seeing us talk about it in the Slack thread. And they're like, okay, I'm going to delay my interview for 2 weeks at Meta, because if that's going on, and if you guys both had that experience where different interviewers were struggling or just weren't in like the best mood, then they delayed their interview to be in a better spot.
Absolutely. And so, as far as other companies outside of just Meta, obviously, if you prepare for Meta, it kind of takes care of a lot of the other ones because they mostly just fall into that same type of format. But with your other companies, like where you ended up landing, which is Disney, was the help super specific for that and timely? And, did it make the difference getting help from our coaches to actually get that offer?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm trying to think specifically about Disney. So like there was that coach that knew about Disney specifically that was able to help answer some questions. She didn't help me with the interview specifically, but just understanding like kind of the structure and stuff of Disney as a whole, and what to expect of like the overall process. But I think specifically with Disney, it gave me confidence. Disney, I think only one interview had like the official analytics framework, or the product. I think it was product sense framework. Only one interview had that. The rest of them were more like behavioral, and then just me having the confidence to speak to everything and knowing that, hey, like, this is, I know what to talk about and I know what to say. Also, like I turned down interviews at Google to accept the Disney role. So Disney was just the first offer and I was super happy with it. So I decided to go with it. But the biggest thing that I think helped with Disney specifically during the interview process, not the offer negotiation, because offer negotiation was so valuable in a different way. But with the interview process, it took so long to hear back. So it'd take like 2 or 3 weeks to hear back from anything. And I'd call Valerie, my coach, and I'd be like, Valerie, I can't do this anymore. Like last week I had like 5 interviews lined up, and this week I have absolutely nothing, and I haven't heard back from any of them, and I'm losing my goddamn mind. And she'd be like, Alexis, it's fine. You're fine. You're gonna be fine. Here are other people, like she didn't give me names, but like I have 5 other people who are waiting to hear back. Or like if there was something that happened with a different company, she's like, oh, I know somebody who had a bad experience with that recruiter too. And just like helping keep a peace of mind and knowing that she's seen success in so many ways and this is normal, that was so helpful. Like there are so many times where I wanted to email the recruiter and be like, hey, have you heard anything? Or like, I'm really excited. But, Valerie's like, don't do that. That doesn't work out well. And she was just like, email me instead if you want to talk to somebody. And so that was just keeping like a calm, sense of mind was so valuable for that specifically.
Sure. So it sounds like having a CSM in your corner at all times. Part of it is just kind of like a cheerleader and maybe a therapist. Um, and then organization, interview calendar. Valerie kind of kept your head on straight. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And there are times where like especially I was dealing with at my last company, just like and I was still working and it wasn't like a super great situation. I had a lot of great friends and colleagues across the company, but my leadership had changed. And so especially like when I'd get out of a call or a day with that leader and I was just like crying, like Valerie would be there and just be like, hey, you got this, like you can do this. And it was like my husband was so amazing. He was very supportive, but it's also like, okay, yeah, you've been in the same job for 5 or 6 years. Like you haven't had to look for anything. You don't know how stressful this is. Obviously, he had his own stress being married to me, like knowing that my job's changing and stuff and we
Sure.
could move. But Valerie she like knew and she like had evidence that this is normal and it will be okay. So it was just amazing.
Great. Well, that's always great to hear. So we talked a little bit about the curriculum and us having all the frameworks. We talked about CSM stuff. So offer negotiation, obviously, I don't want to say anything that you wouldn't want to say, but I know that we got you a solid uh, raise from what had originally been offered up. So maybe just whatever you feel willing to share on the offer negotiation part. How did we help? Was it awesome? Could you have done it yourself? Walk me through that.
Yeah, definitely. So this was the first job that I was interviewing for that had like a multiple. I mean, I had like a signing bonus at my last company that had started, but at this company there's like 5 or 6 different bonuses and negotiation packages to discuss. So not only with like the actual negotiation, but also just understanding what the different terms meant, like with RSUs or different bonuses or how those things work. As well as also like how the process works. Like I would have never known not to get the offer in writing and just talk over the phone. And that just like blew my mind because once they have and Alex like explains like the details and stuff, but it just there were so many little things like that that helped so much. And like Alex would help me with the offer negotiation and he asked me a question. I just sit there like covering my mouth so I didn't say anything because you're supposed to be silent. And that's like the biggest thing. And just like having that pressure helped me a lot because there were times where I put myself on mute and I was just like jumping up and down, like freaking out. And then Alex actually wanted me to go further and negotiate further, but I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's too stressful. So I was happy. Um, but I think, like if if like I would have negotiated myself, I might have gotten like an extra $20,000 or something, but he actually got me like 5 or 6 times that, as far as the number that I was able to get on top of the starting salary and bonuses and stuff to the final one that I accepted. And so that more than paid for the program. And it was there's no way that the HR person basically said I had negotiated the highest offer that he had seen at my level ever.
Yeah, yeah, that's not uncommon for us to hear. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. So that's the to double dip on that though, like it's not like we just got you the cash and there's like a huge delta with that, but we also gave you the skill set to do that again in the future. And then obviously we'll help you next time you have a jump. You'll hopefully be back in the saddle with us. But like, yeah, on your own, you can now go and do that negotiation because you've been in that ringer before, right? And so I think as far as just raw like total compensation goes, that offer negotiation point is such an impactful moment. People leave it to chance. People think that they can just wing it. But in reality, like you've seen it, what you would have accepted versus what we know we could get. And Alex even wanted you to push higher.
Yeah.
There's just such a tangible difference. And over your lifetime of your career, there's probably going to be three or four several jumps like that. Think about all the lost compensation if you didn't have that preparation, so
Yeah. 100%. And it wasn't just money either. I negotiated the place that I was going to move to. So I had the option between New York, Seattle, and LA. And they really wanted me in New York or LA, but I really wanted to go to Seattle. And because I negotiated the location, the salary also, the bonus and stuff didn't go as high as I think it could have gone because the location was on the table as well. But Alex helped me navigate all of that. And because location was so important to me with the cost of living and like Seattle, Washington doesn't have income tax, those were things that mattered a lot. So like Alex helped me figure out like what order to negotiate those things in. And they even had to go up to their SVP to get approval for me to be able to choose Seattle.
amazing. I am so thrilled. And um, another thing I wanted to cover was like maybe what you've heard because you're probably the nicest one of our alumni that's being so willing to help us, talk to students that are on the fence. And I just got another person who's like, hey, can you give me a reference, And really the reason that we run into that is because we don't have a mountain of evidence of these types of case studies because we didn't really want to ask for it at first, but then we realized, oh crap, we're gonna have to keep doing this and keep relying on references and putting phone calls and intro calls. So like after talking to let's say a dozen or maybe 20 students that have been on the fence for PCA, and then almost everyone that you talked to joined, what are some of the common things that they had skepticism around, and how did you answer those questions?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones was like the lack of online like validation or presence. Just they haven't, heard of a lot of people like doing the program, exactly what you said. It's also difficult because like you don't want people to know that you use this program to help you get the job because it's kind of like, risky. You don't want to post on LinkedIn like, thank you so much, Alex, for doing all this stuff. So it's important to like be careful or to understand that like that's why you're not seeing a lot of that evidence is because it's hard to be able to do that as like a professional to say that yeah I've worked with this company just because there's a lot of like companies don't want this to happen to be able to talk and have people understand what the process is and stuff and so I think that was a big thing but when I explained why and like I explained why like I wouldn't want my name to be public about like oh like they had helped me with mock interviews and offer negotiation and everything like that might impact my career negatively. They understood that that makes sense. And I also asked like I think when I had joined I had asked like the numbers of the success rate that you guys had seen like over the last month or two. And I can't remember the specifics, but I think it was like out of 50 people, 30 people had gotten jobs, had accepted job offers within 30 days. The other 10 were super remote or super specialized and they were not willing to move. And the other 10 were like VP or executive level or something. And with those, the higher leadership positions that can take a year or two. And knowing that, that was like, okay, that makes me feel a lot better to see some of those numbers. As well as also I was telling them about some of those slacks and stuff and seeing some of the name recognitions, like the mock interviews where you can join and like listen into like an OpenAI interview or something. Like I remember looking through the calendar and just seeing like OpenAI, Meta, Google, PayPal, like all these big companies and stuff, and people were interviewing, and I know that people are getting jobs or people are getting interviews and jobs from those. So it just validated that like it's
Yeah.
this is normal. So
Yeah, and I think like now we're up to 120 offers accepted, and then it's basically like roughly, we did the audit like a couple of weeks ago. Um, it's like 7 out of 10 people that actually stick with the program and don't pause it. Like they just continue for 4 months straight, they get the role. And the other 3 out of 10 are essentially like director level, remote, like very, very specific use cases. And what we've done is we've essentially shrunk the amount of support per day and then like spread across a year. Like we're helping these people like, and so it's not always a cookie cutter solution, and that's what a lot of people. I can appreciate that they aren't sure and they want to see like an exact use case, but at the end of the day, like we know how to get callbacks, we know how to ace interviews, we know how to maximize offers, and we focus on tech and a very specific demographic. And obviously, we don't help anybody that's like you know, lower level, like below L4 or any junior folks or people that are breaking into product. And so you mentioned earlier in the beginning, like how the community is just so high level. I think that's probably one of the most underestimated parts that we could do a better job of highlighting. Um, but yeah, like it's something that we're going to continue to increase the success rate on. Now, I guess one question before I let you go, and by the way, this has been super helpful, and I'm sure for whoever's watching this now that we send this to, it'll be very insightful. How much do you think it plays in like a lot of this has to do with your effort, right? Like you can't just join the program, pay us, 5 figures, and then it's just a magic wand and we handle it all for you. Would you maybe, if anything comes to mind around like what you did to be so proactive and engaged, because you're one of our, like if we could just recreate you as a student, we would love to just have like 100 Alexises. Maybe speak on what you did to ensure your success, because some people come in and they don't show up, they don't apply, they don't do outreach, they don't actually take the feedback and implement it, and then we just kind of get stuck in circles, and then that hurts us, and it's on us to get them there, but you have to be willing to do the work. What would you say to the person who is kind of evaluating that part?
Yeah, so I think that was probably the second question that I got asked the most around if the like the amount of work that you have to put into it is worth it or not. And what I said is like before I joined the program, I probably spent over 100 hours on my resume. I would see a new template online and I'd rewrite it. And then I'd give that to like all my contacts and be like, hey, can you give me feedback on this? And I probably rewrote my resume like 15 times. But with the program, I like had a validated template that has evidence that it worked. And so rewriting it that last time was easy. And I only spent probably a half hour or maybe 45 minutes on it. And I did not question if my resume, I mean, I might have had like, oh, do I need to change this word to this word? Or like, when you edit it to a specific field or a specific job description. But that I would like, if you're starting from scratch, the 20 hours I spent on my resume editing versus like the 45 minutes that I actually needed to spend, um, you're going to be spinning your wheels so much trying to prepare for some of this stuff and you're already going to be investing in it. And so if you already are going, like you're already committed, then it 100% makes sense to do. You're going to actually save time in the long run and you're going to be more prepared. One of the biggest things I think is like a reason why not to join potentially is if you just aren't committed to leaving your company. Like if you're still on the fence about it, because when you do this program, you're going to want to be 100% committed.
Yep.
But I think that most people probably have already made that decision. They're just worried about the money or something. Because once you join, you're doing it, and you are going to get a new job if you put in the work.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one of the things that we run into on the sales front is we're essentially walking someone through a discovery process like Kirkland did with you. Um, the um, the it's a very specific framework for the questioning. And it's like, hey, are you committed to actually doing this? Are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to be undeniable and unreasonable about the effort that you're putting in? And so some people aren't, and they might feel a little bit of conflict when we ask them those questions. But we try to filter those people out. Um, and it does take a lot of commitment. And we try to say like, hey, if you're not, that's okay. Maybe just come back to us later. Or if you're not willing to relocate to one of these geos, then it's going to be a really tough time for you. So we try to be upfront about that.
Yeah.
So that
So
is a good point.
you're going to spend the time if you're doing the job search and you're committed to leaving and finding a new job, you're going to spend more time, like a multitude more of time not having the program because you're going to have to do the work no matter what, and you're going to spend more work by not having the direction and the feedback to go off of.
Absolutely. Well, Alexis, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us and for our potential and existing and current students. You're someone that we really, really have enjoyed serving at the highest level and working with. And we'd love to continue to support you. And I'm sure that we'll continue to partner on this thing in the future. But